This video is to help you with 5.04 working with classes and methods. Object-oriented programs and languages like Python let you work with objects that you create. In the lesson, you worked with a contact list. So every time you create a new contact, you think about when you create a new contact on your phone, you're creating a new instance of a contact class. You can think of classes as nouns, and like proper nouns, the first letter is capitalized. So let's look at the 5 steps for creating a class in the lesson and then where they exist in the superhero assignment. Step 1 is defining the class. So we have the keyword class, and then we have the name of our class. So class contact. In the superhero assignment is class superhero. And don't forget the colon right at the end. The next step, step 2, is going to be initializing. This method is used to initialize a new object and then set the starting values. So the method is def, and then there is a space, defs, here we put it on a separate line, but you'll notice over in the superhero, there is a space here, so you're defining it, and then it's underscore, INIT, underscore, and then the word self. Initializing is lets us initialize a new object and then actually start the give it the starting values. Step 3 is where we're going to set the parameters. Do notice the parameter self. This is used to reference the object so it can set its attribute values. The starting values can be blank, and you'll see that with the empty quotation marks. So notice that you've got self.name equals an empty quotation marks, which is blank, self.phone, which is empty quotation marks, which is blank. Okay, and then later on you'll be assigning those values. Okay, you see that in your superhero class right here, here's self, and then you can set them up using dot notation here, self.name, self.name, and we're assigning it instead of equals blank, we're assigning it to name because up here we've already made a parameter that says name equals blank. Self.strength points equals strength points, and up here we've already made a parameter setting those strength points as a starting value of 0. Okay. In step 4, we're going to do this in our main method. So I'm going to scroll down here for my main method in 5.04, and you've got an example right over here. It's done in the main method where you create the instance of the object. Your class is creating a blueprint of what the object looks like. In other words, what its attributes, I think of adjectives are, and what its methods, like what it can do, are. And then down in step 4, naming your instance, now you're actually creating an instance of that object, and that it will follow the blueprint that you've set up when you wrote the class. Okay. Here you see it with new contact equals contact, and this is empty right now, but this is where you would put your parameters. And then you see that down here with the superhero, when you go forest hero equals superhero, and then I've already set the attribute values in the parentheses. So whereas these are empty parentheses, these parentheses I filled in with the attribute values. I've given them a name, I've given him 50 points to start out with, and I've given him a weakness, afraid of the dark. Okay. Finally, in step 5, you're retrieving the object's values. And so you can see where these, I was kind of doing that here, but you can see where these correspond. So for example, self.name here, when I go down into my main method and I do the name of the object dot name, that's where I can actually write whatever the name of the object is going to be. So it'd be the name of the object and then dot, which is what we, or a period, that's what we refer to though as dot notation, and then either the attribute or the method. Okay. Now you can improve your initializer method. So for example, up here, when we initialize this, we just did self, and then these we didn't actually give any other attributes besides self. But in your superhero one, I can actually put those right in the when I define um, my method up here. So I've gone ahead and I've assigned those values here. Okay, and they correspond to this, and then they have to correspond to when I actually create the superhero and I set his attribute value. So let me make this one a little bit larger so it's a little bit easier to see. In your program, you're up here, you're going to be starting with code that they have already given you, and then you're going to be adding some other attributes that you want to add. Okay, so I've got the name, the strength points, a weakness, and a strength, but you're going to need to think of a couple other attributes that you can add to your superhero. The next thing you have to do is you have to add a method. I think of methods as verbs, so it's something that my object can do. In this case, he's not stuck with just the strength points that I give him. He can actually add strength points. And I think this is the example they give you. So you define a method, def, whatever the name of your method is. Notice it uses camel case. And then again, you're going to be passing certain parameters. So you're passing self and you're passing points. And my method is saying that I'm going to take my strength points and I'm going to add whatever amount is given or passed in, whatever value is passed in for points. Okay, and that when I call that method, it's going to take whatever my default superhero points are, whatever I've given them, and then it's going to add what additional points I tell it to add. You will also need to define your own method for this program. So think of something else that your superhero can do. Notice that methods like functions can include if else and elif statements. So now when I'm ready to call my method, when I go down to my main method here, okay, and I'm going to have to create a story about my superhero, and you're going to be using print statements, and you'll be using concatenation. So for example, let's say I want to have my superhero's name. Her name is, and remember one of the attributes was name, so I go forest hero dot name. All right, and so that is going to, when I put dot name, it's going to print whatever name I gave my superhero. In this case, I named my superhero Mighty Squirrel, right? I gave her a superpower, Forest Hero plus strength. I gave her a strength of leaping from building to building. Okay, so I call that by going dot, the name of my object, dot strength. Okay, when I get ready to use my method that's going to add strength points, again, name my object, dot, I call it with the method, okay? And then I pass it the amount of strength points I want to add. So I started her off with 50 points. I'm going to add 200 points. And so now when I run my program, it says she earns 100 strength points, so now she has 250 points and has saved the day. Obviously, your story will probably be a lot more involved with mine, and yours also needs to include more than just the add strength points method. Have fun with your superhero program. This can be quite creative, and I hope that helps you also understand working with classes and methods a little bit better.